everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and I'm back today, having finished up the TNG giant novel, Vendetta. Yes, Vendetta, written by Peter David, uh, just another of Peter David's wonderful TNG works. Uh, this one just was a treat. It was fantastic. I enjoyed the thing from start to finish. It is a beast of a giant novel coming in at 30 chapters and 400 pages, and I thoroughly chewed the thing up while I was reading it. As you can see, it's taken a beating here and there. Had some drinks spilled on it, had some water damage, but it's been a good time, all in all. So, the cover, very interesting. So you get to see Guinan, Picard, some random Borg, a nice shot of the Enterprise, and a lot of big letters there in the middle, drawing you to the fact that this is the giant novel, Vendetta. The USS Enterprise's most deadly foe returns. The Borg, of course. So, of course, the art here on the cover by the late, great Keith Birdsong, who did just so many of these at that time. But let's jump right into the back cover here. The Borg, half organic, being half... The Borg. The Borg, half organic being and half machine. They are the most feared race in the known galaxy. In their relentless quest for technological perfection, they have destroyed entire star systems, enslaved countless peoples, and in a single brutal attack, decimated Starfleet's mightiest vessels. Wolf 359, of course. Only a final desperate gambit by Captain Picard and the Enterprise crew stopped the Borg from conquering the entire Federation, and now they have returned. Vendetta. Answering a distress call from a planet under the attack by the Borg, the Enterprise meets Delcara, the lone survivor of an alien race the Borg obliterated. Blinded by hatred, Delcara seeks the ultimate revenge, the complete destruction of her race's executioners. But the Enterprise crew learns that Delcara's vengeance carries a terrible price. For once unleashed, the destructive force she commands will annihilate not only the Borg, but countless innocents as well. Wow. Alright. I'm glad, again, that I didn't read that back cover before I got into it, because it kind of, you're always better going into the book with the full mystery of what's going on. You don't want to be giving away little bits and pieces, and the mystery of Delcara was like the central theme of the book, who she was and how it was revealed who she was, and then what she could do and what she does. That's like the whole thing. So, yeah. So anyway, don't read the back unless you really, really need to know a little bit more about the book. So we don't need those notes. We do need these notes here. So we took fairly decent notes, and I lie, they're terrible notes. But I will say we started this on the 1st of June, finished it on the 11th. Today is the 11th. Interesting note in the book here is that... In my version, it does not have it. But in other versions of the book, I guess, it was prefaced with... The plot and background details of Vendetta are solely the author's interpretation of the universe of Star Trek, and vary in some respects from the universe as created by Gene Roddenberry. Oh no, there it is. Okay, yep. It is right there. So basically, Peter David's vision of the Borg was kind of different than what the general consensus was, so they had to put that in there so that he could keep a specific plot line in the book that he liked, which turned out to be a very interesting but also kind of dark plot line as well. So, alright, before we get into too much of just ranting and raving about what a great book this was and how much fun we had reading it, let's just kind of go over the basics, the gist of it. So, the story is a Picard story, of course, and don't be fooled by the cover. Guinan is in it, but it is a Picard story, and if you want to give anyone a kind of a second place in it, I would say it would be Geordi. Picard and Geordi kind of take the center stage here in this, and it is it is a bit of a kind of a mystery at first. You're kind of trying to figure out what's going on, and there is a lot going on with it, and it takes initially it even takes you back to Picard's Academy days. There's some interesting stuff thrown in there with some Ferengis that comes into play, and then also when it kind of heats up as well. There's so many different points in the book where you're kind of getting like a whole different vibe out of it, and I think that's just the whole way that it was written. Interesting enough, it was written in like parts like a play. Have an overture, an intermission, overture, Act 1, intermission, Act 2, grand finale. I think it went like that. So, and it really did kind of feel like this kind of grand set piece kind of coming together that really came together with an actual grand finale. Like the last, maybe 10 chapters of the book really were just kind of a ride. It took you right to the end. Immensely quotable. There was so many lines in the book where you were like, yes, I could totally see Picard saying that, see Worf saying that, see Geordi saying that, like, of course Peter David has that down very well, but by this time, and just really fun, really good, and it takes, kind of adds something, I guess, to the whole, the best of both worlds, kind of to those two episodes, kind of takes that and builds upon it, so this is, of course, the book about books, Voyages of the Imagination, and so this book is set after the best of both worlds, shortly after that, and of course the Borg are a great fear for them, for everyone, after what one ship did, and kind of just they barely escaped, so here's what Peter David says. The concept for Vendetta came because they wanted him to do a giant novel about the Borg, and he was watching an original series episode called The Doomsday Machine, which I happen to be watching right now, actually. So, well, I'm not going to watch the whole thing, but check this out.
Transporter operational, Captain. Shall we beam you aboard?
Negative. Mr. Scott and I will stay here, but beam the...
But anyway, that's what I was watching in preparation to this. I've seen the episode before, but that comes up in this. Basically, Peter David built upon that episode and kind of created more from that. And so watching that before reading this will give you like a little bit of extra, an interesting backstory for that. So I guess I won't get into that yet, but so watch The Doomsday Machine and then read Vendetta. And the other thing I like about this too, it always comes up for me, is whenever I think about Vendetta, it makes me think of the Count of Monte Cristo and the Corsican Bertuccio and his Vendetta. So the Vendetta that makes me think of that, and that always makes me happy when I think about that book. So, all right, that's the non-spoilery section. I'm just going to kind of rant about the plot and some things for a little bit now, and we'll kind of see where we go. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can tune in next time, and we'll see what we're going to get into then. But yeah, so this was very good. The book starts out with Picard in Starfleet Academy. You're getting like a little bit of look at the young Picard and how he was driven, and he has this vision of this woman that he knows is not just like in his head. It's too real, So the whole kind of beginning of the book is that, and he has this vision of this woman, and it just kind of goes into his head and it drives him, and he kind of, even like over time, kind of forgets about it, but the experience still is something that is with him and keeps kind of driving him forward on and on and on and on. So and then it also introduces you at that time to one of his associates in the academy, this Korsmo. But so him and Korsmo, they kind of like butted heads, but then he'll come in later on in the story. So the story starts out in the present time, where you get a first-hand, basically, Borg attack. The planet. Anyway, this guy named Dontar lives on this planet, and you get to a first-hand view of the Borg attacking and killing, and it's really rather like it's kind of crazy because it starts out where they're having like a family gathering, a party, and then everything just goes to hell. The Borg cube comes into space, basically blots out the sun, and just starts ripping up the planet while transporting drones down. This Dontar has to see his whole family murdered, and is basically on the last section of planet that is getting cut up and pulled up into the cube, before the end. And that is when this ship shows up and just wrecks the cube completely and totally annihilates it. Tears it to shreds, and then just moves on from there. And then this big giant ship, which is described as looking like basically kind of like a tornado almost, with large spires coming out of the tornado, with so it's coming up like this, and then it's like in a big mouth, and then it's like eating whole planets, right? Just like we saw in the Doomsday Machine that we're watching up there. So, well, it's basically revealed later on that I'm gonna be jumping ahead here a lot. This machine was built by a race that was decimated by the Borg. However many millions or whatever years ago it was. But this was the second model. The first prototype they built and released just before they were all kind of gonna die. They just wanted to make sure they got something out there, and that was the machine from the Doomsday Machine. So just very cool little tie back there to the TOS, right? They talked about how it was created by some race to fight some ancient battle or however it was put. So just a very fun tie back there to that. And then the second version of the ship was this one. Now, this is when the book gets really kind of crazy. So, the second version of the ship was discovered by Delcara, and she was able to discover it through her contact with the young Picard, whose drive kind of drove her to discover this machine, kind of waiting out there beyond the galactic barrier. She has to actually bust through the galactic barrier to get to it. And this machine is powerless without some sort of pilot, but it is kind of inhabited by the souls of all of the people that were destroyed by the Borg. So it's like this ship of many, almost kind of like the Borg, But now she is in control of it, and she is the one, and they are the many, and they have this mission to destroy the Borg. But this is a planet-killing thing, so as it moves on its mission through the solar system, it's going to be eating up planets, and of course Starfleet cannot be allowing that, right? So that's where the something comes in there. Now, the Enterprise gets a distress call from Dontar's planet. They get there, they find the destroyed Borg ship. They find it's the Penzati is the species on the planet, and they're able to rescue Dontar, and they're able to rescue some of the other Penzati, but mostly their race has been wiped out. They're also able to rescue a Borg drone, so they bring her back to the ship. This is one of the big points of the book here. They bring her back to the ship, and they kind of de-Borg her like they did with Captain Picard, And Geordi takes her on as kind of like a project. He wants to be able to fix her, to bring her back to life. They do find out that she was a kind of an ex-spacer pilot named Rhiannon Bonaventure, and Geordi does a little bit of weird holodeck stuff to kind of find out more about her. And I gotta tell you, there's some things that happen here with her that are just like a very big breach of security. And I think Worf should have been more on top of things, but for the sake of the story, I think it worked out fine. Alright, so they have this rescued Borg, they have all these Penzati up there now in the sick bay. They try to they take all the Borg implants out of her. They're going to try to rehabilitate her. So that's like one of the storylines here, with the other storyline being their pursuit of the planet killer. This big giant thing. So now in comes a couple of other ships. You have the USS Chekhov. You love that. Love a little name drop there to some TOS characters. So USS Chekhov, captained by Morgan Korsmo. So now you have his rival coming back here, and they kind of butt heads initially. And also aboard the Korsmo is the first officer is Commander Shelby, of course, from the Best of Both Worlds. And they also even feature the USS Repulse, and that has Dr. Pulaski on it as well. So they do throw like a little bit of everything here in kind of the I would say maybe the Act 2 of the book, Guinan, of course, Guinan is she feels something now, and she actually, everybody's kind of, or Picard is generally concerned because Guinan normally does not have any kind of issues like this where she's looking off or feeling off or anything like that. So she reveals kind of some of the history of this Delcara. And Delcara was actually found and rescued by Guinan's race, the listeners, for a better term. So Delcara had her first race, her whole race, her family, completely, totally destroyed by the Borg. She was the sole survivor to be rescued by the listeners. And then the listeners go on to be destroyed by the Borg. So two times she's been destroyed by the Borg. So that's when I think basically she gets the divine whatever from Jean-Luc to find this weapon. And then she takes a shuttle, she busts through the galactic barrier, pilots the weapon, takes it back into space, and blows up that first Borg cube. So now we're in a bit of a situation where Picard wants to negotiate, talk to her, However, Starfleet and Korsmo and everybody else is basically, we have to stop this thing, which, of course they do. So, also, a Ferengi daemon named Damon Terrain, who's kind of out on his luck, down on his luck, is out on the outer edges of the galaxy, finds these Borg ship, approaches them, and tries to make a deal with them. He's not the brightest daemon. Anyway, gets taken on board, gets assimilated, and now the Borg have a new representative, and this is Vastador of the Borg. So, an interesting thing to think about is a Borg Ferengi, and I'm wondering if that has ever been pictured before. Have we ever seen a Borg Ferengi drone? Huh. I don't know if we have or not. I'm going to do an image. A Borg Ferengi. Look at this. A Borg Ferengi. Like that, right? I don't know where that came from. But anyway, so that comes in early in the book, and then that part of the story drops off while they pursue the planet killer, and you have all this other stuff going on. Now, the planet killer is on its way into Tholian space, which is no good. Of course, the Tholians are not, allied with Starfleet, so the Enterprise and the Repulse, or not the Repulse, the Enterprise and the Chekhov are going to try to stop them from going into Tholian space. No success. They're on a mission to get to Borg space, and they're going to kind of take their own sweet time doing it and work their way through. So, but so this is when you have one of the big first action sequences of the book, where this thing basically tears through the Tholian defenses, is on its way to the Tholian homeworld to destroy it and kind of suck it up, But Picard and the Enterprise step in and place themselves between the Tholian homeworld, and the World Destroyer. And because of, her connection to Picard, she's unable to destroy the homeworld, and she actually throws the ship into the sun, and everybody thinks that she's destroyed herself, but she just flies right out the other side and kind of keeps on moving. The Tholians are kind of impressed, Captain Picard was able to do that for them, so that's an interesting part there too. But now we're getting to the real finale of the book, and this is when the Borg come for their vendetta. They're coming to take their revenge for their ship being destroyed, and they're coming in basically taking no chances. So, and they even, before they arrive to the World Destroyer, reach out to the Enterprise and say, "Stay out of the way. We are going to destroy this thing, and if you don't interfere, we won't destroy you." Very un-Borg-like. But it's a characteristic, I guess, they picked up from having the Ferengi as, being a Borg, right? So, very cool there. And the whole final sequence of the book just was very well done, with so many cool little twists and turns and tricks and things going on. I'll be sure not to get all of it here in this video, but let's hit the high points that come to mind. So, again, the 3 Borg come screaming in. Now, at this time, Captain Picard has beamed over to try to talk her out of it, So he is aboard the ship, and when the Borg attack, the Delcara beams back everyone else but Picard. So her and him are aboard the World Eater, and then everyone else is back where they're supposed to be, and then the battle is joined. Initially, Cosmo, who's kind of in charge of the whole situation as the ranking officer, is saying, we are going to stand back and let the Borg destroy this thing. Riker's like, no, I don't think we're going to do that. And he actually goes against orders in a very cool scene and takes on the first ship. And then in another very awesome scene, on board the Chekhov, Cosmo, who's just kind of lost it at this point, he gives the order to fire on the Enterprise. And then the tactical officer says, "Whoops, I missed." It just basically fires wide of the thing, which makes Cosmo kind of check himself and realize what's going on. And that's when the Chekhov comes in to join the battle against the Borg. So now you have the 2 ships and the World Eater fighting against the Borg cubes. Lots of great stuff going on here. When they're running into some trouble at the end, the USS Repulse flies in, saves the Chekhov, which has taken a ton of damage, and then performs I don't know what they end up calling it, but the maneuver that Riker came up with, or that they came up with in Best of Both Worlds, where they channel their warp power through their deflector, and it absolutely works, and it tears apart this Borg cube. So, and then in the another one of the Borg cubes is destroyed. The final Borg cube is locked into like a pitched battle with the World Eater, and another very cool scene. It's pulled into the World Eater's mouth while the other 2 ships use like reverse tractors to push it in. So just so much fun stuff. So many cool scenes in the end. Picard aboard the World Eater has to fight with Borg drones that beam in, and then has to fight with Vastator, the Ferengi Borg, who ends up killing Delcara, well, nearly killing Delcara, with a phaser blast set to level 16, and then is killed by Picard. And then, oh man, God, this book is so good! In the end, the World Eater takes off at top speed. She kind of knows she's dying. She has to finish her mission before she dies, right? So she gets up to warp 9.8, 9.85, and they've got to get Picard off there, right? So they call down to O'Brien and say, "O'Brien, you watch for the one chance you get. We got to get them off there before they get out of warp 9.9, right?" So they get right to that point, and then Picard just shimmers away at the last minute, They don't even kind of let you know they got him. It's one of those kind of, you're just hanging on the edge there. So, but they beam him away. They get him. They save him. But then she reaches infinite speed. And this is just another very cool thing to talk about and think about. And basically, you can't go faster than warp 9.9. And I love the analogy that they give in the end, where it's basically like you're continually only getting halfway closer to your goal with every step. So with every step, you're incrementally getting closer, but you'll never truly be there because each step is only like halfway there. And I actually, for a minute, I thought that the book had like some printing errors, but it was just a wonderfully done thing that he does in the end, because she is kind of like sucked into like infinite time. And in the book, like the chapters kind of repeat, you know? It says, sweet Picard was gone, sweet Picard was gone. And then that kind of goes on again and again and again. And then all the way to the very end of the book, where they kind of explain that she is kind of forever trapped in forever time. Forever traveling, never getting there. Infinitely in all spaces at once. It's interesting. And here's, look, that's like the final lines of the book, which read, just a few more minutes. Infinitely, forever, for all time. Oh, so cool, so good. Star Trek TNG, Vendetta, the giant novel by Peter David. Definitely one of my favorites. Absolutely. It was fun, and it was fun to talk about. And I encourage you to read it as soon as possible. And also watch The Doomsday Machine. I'm going to finish watching that now, actually. As always, everybody, thank you for tuning in.
Except possibly
Live long and prosper. We'll see you all in the next one.
that thing out there.
Bye.
Carry out your orders.